This is the Happy Families podcast with Dr. Justin Coulson. We are Luke and Susie, and this is the podcast for time-poor parents who just want answers now.
It is just about to officially start Schoolies 2017.
Yeah.
It's always one of those times of year that we want to celebrate with those people who are in our community finishing high school, but at the same time, there's that little bit of fear. We hope they're okay. What's going to happen? What are the stories that come out on the news?
It's when our young people and some slightly older that aren't supposed to be there sort of travel to usually coastal sort of party towns and go into an environment where they just want to have a good time. Let their hair down. Let's let them do it. But so many silly decisions are made. Well, in reality, if you have a look at it, so few really silly decisions are made, but they're big consequences.
Well, that's exactly right. To talk us through this whole Schoolies, what do we need to do? We've got Dr. Justin Coulson from happyfamilies.com.au. This is something you need to be, I guess, on top of You must have a lot of conversations about Schoolies, surely.
With my daughter who's going this year.
Okay.
Thanks for bringing it up.
No, that's good.
I'm so glad.
So you're
Let's live in
saying,
that moment.
because a lot of families are coming up with alternatives like big family holidays instead of Schoolies, but you're saying she can go?
Oh, well, look, we've had the big family holiday, but regardless of the timing, once your kids are 18, it's kind of hard to say you're not going. If they want to go, they'll find a way. And I know that there are some people who say, look, it's my house, it's my rules, but for the most part, most parents that I talk to who have got kids that are, 18 years old are saying, we really don't want them to. We're advising them against it, but ultimately it's going to be their decision. Yeah. And we've said to our daughter, we would prefer that you don't go, quite clearly, but it's her decision. And so there's all sorts of things that she's got lined up, and Schoolies is part of the I finished school celebration for her for a couple of days.
Let me guess the most common things that are said during these conversations. You just need to trust me, and then the parent says, it's not you I don't trust. Something like that. I reckon that's probably said a few times.
I reckon you've been practicing for what's going to happen in 10 years, right, Luke?
Exactly.
Well, this is the thing. As parents sending children off at this time of year, we want to trust our children. But we also want to arm them. But how do you even have that conversation that we don't want to scare them? We want them to enjoy it. We want them to have a good time.
The reality is you can't trust them. They're going to Schoolies. Let's be real about it. What happens at Schoolies?
Yeah.
Everybody does stuff that parents would rather their kids not do.
Yeah.
It would be really unusual.
I was a good schoolie.
You were a good
that.
schoolie.
I was a really good schoolie.
There are some good ones, I'm sure. But look, it's a risky environment. And so the conversation essentially needs to go like this. We want you to make good decisions. What are you planning on doing? We don't want you to take anything that could harm you. What do you intend to do if an opportunity to take a substance arises and you don't know enough about that substance, or you know it's illicit or unhealthy? And lastly, we want to talk about intimacy and make sure that no poor decisions are going to be made around that. Regardless of the conversations that we have, I hate to say it, but most kids are going to do whatever the heck they want while they're there because they're caught up in the moment. And look, it's got to be hard when you haven't got a fully developed prefrontal cortex, and it just looks like fun. And so we're going to do it because we're in the moment. You only live once, and I don't want to get to 30 and regret all the stuff that I didn't do until you get to 30 and you regret the stuff that you did.
As long as, and I think as long as our children need to do what they want to do, not what their friends want them
and
to do.
That's a really important thing right there. We need to teach them to be strong enough to do what they feel is right. But there are kids who are going to Schoolies who absolutely feel that it's perfectly all right to have intimate relationships with strangers and to consume substances that they know nothing about, that just are on the promise that it's going to be awesome if you do it. There are kids who aren't going to be questioning those kinds of things. They're going to just be excited about it. It's a real taste of freedom. I think that the most important thing that we can say to our children is, if you're in trouble, no matter what that trouble is, call and I will come, or I will get you help. I don't care if it's 3 a.m. I don't care what the trouble is. You need to know that I'm going to be there for you, or I'll get help for you. They need to know that however dumb they end up being, because all the conversations in the world aren't going to prevent dumb decisions, that we're there for them. I think that that's key. And the other thing, of course, is buy a really good set of restraints and handcuff them to the refrigerator so that they can't get out.
The interesting thing, and we've discussed this before, because you don't get to just say that at Schoolies and have it not be a part of your parenting before that point. Like if you've been the hard taskmaster where every time they made a mistake you came down on them hard, regardless of how you found out about it, and then at Schoolies you say, no matter what it is, just give me a call. Like that communication line is not there if what we do as parents before that point shows the opposite behaviour. They're unlikely to trust us with a mistake that they've half made if we haven't shown the trustworthiness of that. And it's interesting because I went through this with my 8-year-old who was so scared to tell me that he took the money that we gave him for something and went and bought a Coke with it, and we don't let him have Coke and caffeine. And he didn't want to tell Daddy. He told Mummy he didn't want to tell Daddy because he knew I was going to come. And I was confronted with this to go, because he didn't actually get into trouble. Like I went, that we don't think that was a good decision and that you shouldn't have done that. But you know what? We can learn, we can have a conversation about that. And there was no hard line, you're in trouble. Thank you for telling us, was what we said. And let's work through what a better choice could have been next time. And I was really cotton on to, when he gets a teenager, I want him not to think, if I tell Dad half a mistake, he's going to rip into me. Versus, Dad's going to be reasonable and help me work through and be a problem solver in this for me.
To some extent, the decisions that kids make once they're adults, once they're on Schoolies, once they've gone off to university, staying at college, whatever it might be that they're doing, the decisions that they make and the way that they communicate with us will be based on not what we did in the week leading up to it, but what we did in the 18 years leading up to it. We set the foundation then. Now, that's not always going to be the case. There are going to be some kids who will have been raised in beautiful homes with loving parents. Those kids will not have put a foot out of line their entire youth. And then all of a sudden, they're going to unleash themselves and go bananas. That does happen. It's unusual, but it does happen. And so as parents, I think the best thing that we can do, like I said, is start young, teach them what's right. And then when they do make that decision, whether they're 16 and they want to head off to a party that one of the kids in their grade is having and there's not going to be any parental supervision and there's probably going to be alcohol and other substances, or whether they're 18 and they're heading away for the week so that they can party on the Gold Coast or in Victor Harbour or wherever it is that they're going to have their big party, or even if they're going off to Bali or Fiji, doing all that sort of stuff, we just need to hope that what we've taught them over the years has been enough.
Yeah. On a practical level, and I know Justin's the expert here, can I throw some 2 cents worth in as a guy who's had to withhold or counter peer pressure for drinking? Don't teach your kids to not let somebody else buy your drinks for you. And because there's so much peer pressure. Because I would go, I'll have a beer or two and then I'll drink soda water. And it's fine because nobody knows what's in your glass, and no one until they go to buy for you, and then you go, I'll have a soda water or a Coke, and they go, no, and they start to mount so much pressure on you that they're shouting you, no, I'm going to get you something else. And times when they've been relentless for 10 minutes, refuse, like just wanting me to buy alcohol. No, I'm not going to. Or come back and just refuse to buy, and so they've given me something which is alcoholic. I've even had a barman when I had a free drink thing and used it for a Coke, went, no, you can't use that. And so he actually gave me free drinks because he refused to take the free drink tab on a soft drink. Like, there is so much pressure on it. Whereas I made a decision, I'm not letting anybody else shop me drinks so that I don't have to justify. They see a drink in my hand, no one thinks twice about it. It minimises the peer pressure incredibly when it comes to whether you're drinking alcohol or not.
There's all sorts of things around safety and personal leadership that we could talk about, like making decisions about who will buy you drinks, or not letting anyone buy a drink, or watching what happens with the drink, making sure you don't go back to people's units. And the list is long. We could talk about that for a very, very long time. I think that every family, though, needs to just parents need to sit down and have those conversations with their kids. Maybe talk to other parents whose kids have been away and find out what they would advise.
What they encountered.
Talk to the people in your life who you trust and get that sort of information. Look, at the end of the day, whether the kids do it now with Schoolies because they're old enough, or whether they start doing it once they head off to uni, or once they head off to work, or once they go away on that trip, these kinds of things eventually do happen. Schoolies is a pressure cooker. Schoolies is this place where everybody's in there and everybody's doing it. But these sorts of decisions ultimately are going to need to be made for the rest of their lives. And at some point, we've got to actually let go of our kids and say, you're an adult. It's now your life. It's your path. It's a hard thing to do.
What's the consequences, Justin, of someone not taking that advice and just going, no, I don't care whether you're 18, you're under my roof, and just you're not going? Because in a sense, the parent who's passionate about that opinion could say, well, if I do that and it works, then they don't go and they're alive. If I don't do that, if I relent and let them go and something bad happens, then how will I live with myself? And in a sense, it's this hypothetical risk that so many of us parents, we're willing to do something harsh and maybe not wise.
So much of this comes down to the child and the parent. So I know some adolescents that I've worked with. I have one myself who, if you say, I don't care what you say, you're not going, there'll be a hole in the window the next day and that child will be gone.
Yeah.
And I've worked with plenty of parents who have had kids like that, where the more forceful we become, the more crazy those kids become in order to assert their independence. And so I would say to parents, make sure that you're not trying to deal with one of those kids, because if you are, they'll be gone. And all of a sudden you get into this tussle where you're saying, that's it, you're out, you're never coming home, you're not my son, you're not my daughter. And all of a sudden families fall apart over these power trips. And that's exactly what they are. Then you have the kids who are going to be compliant. The parents say, that's it, I've had enough, you're not going, end of conversation. And they sit there and they do as they're told. And if you've got a child who will do that, well, then you get to have that conversation with them and they'll probably be okay. But they probably would have been okay anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that we've got to be really mindful of the child and the individual attributes of the child. And to the extent that it's possible, just guide them to make good decisions.
Yeah.
Again, they're going to have to make those decisions for themselves eventually.
Does schoolies happen everywhere in the world? Because I'm just thinking about leaving the country in the later stages of our boys' life to get away.
I don't think
You've got spring break in America. You've got schoolies in Australia. I'm just trying to think. Is there a country that doesn't do this? Madagascar. What's the party life in Madagascar when school finishes? Let's move there.
I'm just gonna hope that it's my genes that are in them for schoolies. That's what I'm praying.
Susie was always a good girl, Justin. Always a good girl. I'm the one who made the stupid decisions. But I made them well and truly before schoolies age.
Yeah, I think it's not a male-female thing, but males are a little bit behind in their neurological development. They're a little bit less mature. They're a bit more likely to do some dumb things, a bit more inclined towards risk. But there are plenty of girls who want to rebel. There's plenty of girls who just want to live their life and do it their way and be popular and be cool. And as parents, again, I know, look, I've sounded very serious in this one, but it is. There are some things that we get all uptight about, and in a week's time or a year's time, we'll have completely forgotten.
Yeah.
The lollipop in the supermarket, for example, who cares? I mean, yes, we've got to have limits, but it's not worth losing the plot over. Yeah. But kids going to schoolies and doing dumb stuff, this sort of stuff can affect them for the rest of their lives. The conversations need to be had. The kids will do what they'll do if we've got headstrong kids. Yep. If we've got kids who are fairly compliant, then we'll probably have more luck. Either way, at some point, the kids are going to have to make their own decisions. Yeah. Preferably not at schoolies, but sometimes that's just the way it is.
Yeah. Such a big thing to explore. We thank you for having a chat to us about it. Schoolies Week, just about upon us if you are a school. We hope you have a wonderful and safe but fun time.
But safe, but fun. But safe. Don't make any stupid decisions, but fun.
It's worth celebrating. Dr. Justin Coulson from happyfamilies.com.au. Thanks so much for your time.
Pleasure.
Well, for more information on how you can get this parenting thing under control, you can go online to happyfamilies.com.au for more resources there. But if you're interested in having Dr. Justin Coulson speak at your community group, organisation or event, you can find out more about that at justincoulson.com.